Consensus is definitely that people are leaving the UK in 2026, and I've gone through the thousands of comments on my post on this topic, and I found the top 4 countries that people are moving to or have left to and are loving it. But since then, even more comments have come in with the top countries. So
You're fucking giggling,
GB News on the ground here in Florida for the big quarter-final clash against Norway. But whilst we're here, we thought we'd ask why so many Brits, 400,000, are leaving the UK for the Sunshine State.
Here is why 2026 will break the record for the amount of Brits moving to Australia and continue that upward trend of Brits moving here. Number 1, it's never been easier for Brits to move to Australia.
Everyone expected British fans to fly home with football memories. Instead, many came back acting as if they'd accidentally toured a completely different planet. One minute they were chanting for England, and the next they were pricing Texas apartments, craving barbecue, and wondering why strangers in America smiled before asking for directions.
Has anyone left the UK and actually regretted it, or is everybody just living their absolute best life? Because I think today's going to be the day that I book one-way tickets for me.
All the millionaires have gone, and now the middle class are doing one too. That's right, they're not mega-rich billionaires, they're families, professionals, teachers, engineers, small business owners, and they are quietly packing their bags and leaving Britain behind.
So why the British obsession with tea? At a time when the British were building the first steam engines and leading the Industrial Revolution, the East India drug cartel, trading company.
So what on earth happened during the 2026 World Cup that made thousands of Brits start dreaming about swapping tea, drizzle, and tiny houses for sunshine, giant burgers, and the American dream? Something nobody saw coming completely flipped the script.
It's refilling. Yeah, but I didn't know. It's free refills in America. Free? Free, you don't pay for that. We have to pay. You can have as many as you want. All for the same price.
Right, okay, so we're here. Pretty raw feelings after the match. How would you assess that?
I couldn't even say anything, mate, to be honest. Just really emotional, mate. It's just not good enough from England. We need to get a change. We need to be good enough. We need to be good enough to win a World Cup.
5 marketing moves that stood out to me in the World Cup. First up, we have Kansas. They took a simple takeaway box and turned it into something people actually wanted to wear. Every customer was a walking billboard. This is a great example of your packaging being your media spend. They barely spent anything, but they ended up all over social platforms.
The strangest souvenir many British football fans brought home from the 2026 World Cup was not a jersey, a match ticket, or a suitcase stuffed with barbecue sauce. It was an uncomfortable realization that refused to disappear once the holiday ended.
Today I'm flying back to the greatest country in the world, America. I'm a fully documented legal immigrant from Germany. I know my name is Mario, but I swear to God I'm not Latino. I'm just a little tan right now because I spent too much time in Europe.
I'll tell you what, yeah? I pledge allegiance, I do. What piece of paper do I need to sign on? I want in on America more than I...
Long after the stadium lights faded and the chants echoed into memory, countless travelers stepped back onto familiar streets in Britain, feeling as though someone had quietly turned the color saturation down on their lives.
They can do 3 years on a working holiday visa in Australia without having to do anything really. They can just do 3 years straight up. It's a massive opportunity. Number 2 is the UK is currently looking worse than ever.
I'm moving 4,000 miles away, and here is what I'm taking to America, part 1. So in this part it's all like my home where...
I spent a lot of the last 4 weeks roasting the hell out of the World Cup. I called out the hypercapitalization of the game, I've whistleblown corruption, and pointed out risks of dystopian advancements hidden underneath technological advancements.
The same neighborhoods looked smaller, the same routines felt heavier, and the same conversations suddenly carried an unmistakable sense of resignation. What had started as a football tournament had unexpectedly become a comparison between 2 very different ways of living, and for many visitors, that comparison refused to favor home.
I have a question, right? Are there people in other countries, or the UK, that would want to move to America? If you would want to move to America, to try it out,
I watched the World Cup game that England won last night with a group of English people in a bar packed with England fans. Let me show you what it was like.
Almost overnight, social media filled with videos from British fans admitting something they never expected to say. Many had boarded their flights believing they were visiting a country that European headlines often portrayed as loud, dangerous, politically divided, and endlessly chaotic. Instead, they discovered communities that welcomed complete strangers with genuine enthusiasm, cities bursting with optimism, and everyday interactions that felt surprisingly refreshing.
This fucking hellhole of a country, like, we would be here all day if I was to start going into how bad things have become and what this place is now. And
contrast was so striking that thousands of returning fans joked they were renewing their passports for another one-way journey, rather than putting them back in a drawer until the next holiday. The irony was impossible to ignore. For years, countless Europeans had grown up consuming stories that painted America as a place constantly balancing on the edge of disaster. Television broadcasts focused on political drama, crime statistics, and endless arguments that made it seem as though stepping off the plane required body armor and extraordinary courage. Yet once ordinary football supporters actually experienced the country for themselves, many discovered something entirely different.
And some more countries here, if you're interested, lock in. To be honest, I don't know why Portugal didn't make the first list. Everybody has been saying how much they love Portugal, how they're moving to Portugal this year. I think the ease of getting visas there is higher than other countries. The weather's good.
This post-World Cup depression is gonna hit worse than anything ever. Because what am I supposed to do the rest of the summer now? Genuinely. Because I didn't get to enjoy the last World Cup. I was stuck in high school watching every game from a laptop.
Instead of spending every waking moment avoiding danger, they found themselves laughing with complete strangers outside stadiums, sharing meals with local families, and wondering why the reality looked so different from the picture they had been shown. One of the biggest surprises had nothing to do with famous landmarks or spectacular stadiums. It came from something much harder to photograph. The atmosphere itself seemed different. Americans carried themselves with an energy that many British visitors found almost confusing. It was not simply that people smiled more often.
Fort Lauderdale, in the neighborhood, I believe, a couple of blocks away, of Luis Suarez and Leo Messi for Inter Miami, to speak to some British expats, particularly some women who have set up a group to support each other, to enjoy.
I'm currently on British Person Comes to America for World Cup TikTok, and I'm seeing all these guys who are like, have you ever heard of Sonic Ice? I've discovered it. I've discovered Sonic Ice. And then
the first World Cup halftime show ever was a complete disaster. So FIFA decided to go all out for this halftime show. They had people like Madonna, BTS, Justin Bieber, and even more. But even though they hired the top talent in the entire world, they had no idea how to put on a top show.
It was the feeling that they genuinely expected good things to happen. That difference became obvious from the very beginning of each day. In countless videos recorded throughout the tournament, British travelers described how Americans seemed to wake up assuming the day held opportunities waiting to be discovered. They spoke enthusiastically about future plans, encouraged one another's ambitions, and celebrated success instead of treating optimism like an embarrassing personality flaw. Back in Britain, several visitors admitted they had become accustomed to a completely different rhythm of life.
But I've been through that, I know how it feels, bro, but trust me, you don't want to end up like this, bro. It's not worth it, bro. It's not really worth it. And even the gang life isn't even worth it, bro. I'm gonna say that with chest, you know. Because, bro, people that are in the gang life, bro, I promise you, ask anyone.
I tried to warn them. When you live in a country that eats jacket potatoes and beans on toast.
Self-deprecating humor, cautious expectations, and preparing for disappointment often felt woven into everyday conversation. Suggest an ambitious idea to a group of friends, they joked, and someone would quickly explain why it would probably fail. Success was admired only after it happened, rarely before. America introduced many of them to a mindset that felt almost rebellious by comparison. People openly discussed dreams, encouraged complete strangers, and seemed genuinely excited when someone wanted to pursue something bigger than ordinary.
As a permanent resident of the country that I've dreamed of living in, and I'm so happy we worked so hard to get it, because I am having the best time of my life.
This is probably the most American thing I've ever seen. I'm saying that a lot in America. We've got one size of monster, another size of monster, another size of monster, but if that's still not big enough for you, another size of monster. Oh my god.
Alright, open.
You're lying! You're lying, it's
It's refill. Yeah, but I didn't ask for that. It's free refills in America. Free? Free, you don't pay for that. You can have as many as you want.
For visitors who had spent years surrounded by more reserved attitudes, that enthusiasm was unexpectedly contagious. Several British content creators described their first few days in America as feeling like someone had quietly restored the missing colors to a faded photograph. Even cities they knew little about somehow appeared more vibrant, but they eventually realized the buildings were not responsible for that feeling. The people were. The weather certainly helped. Much of the World Cup unfolded beneath bright blue skies that seemed determined to appear in every photograph. While many fans joked about London's endless relationship with grey clouds and drizzle, they also acknowledged that sunshine alone could not explain the difference.
Needs to be good enough.
What's the change? Is that Tuchel? Is that a change of system?
Tuchel, change the squad. Lewis Hall needs to be in it. Not just Lewis Hall, Palmer, Foden, he should be in it. It's just not good enough. Jordan Henderson, why is he in the squad?
I've just had one of the biggest cultural shocks since moving to America. So I'm sitting outside listening to the football. I'm not inside watching it, but I'm listening to it and having a glass of wine at the same time. And the USA just scored.
Plenty of countries enjoy warm climates without creating the same emotional reaction. Instead, visitors kept returning to one recurring observation. The optimism seemed embedded within everyday culture, rather than simply produced by pleasant weather. Former British residents who had spent years living across America found themselves nodding in agreement as these travel stories flooded the internet. Some had lived in San Francisco before relocating to Houston. Others had experienced life across multiple states over more than a decade. Although each person praised different parts of the country, they almost all arrived at exactly the same conclusion. It was never just about the food. It was never just about bigger houses.
In the river in Texas is a 10 out of 10 experience. We can't really do this back home because either the rivers are freezing cold or they're disgusting.
Around New York City, the crazy thing about Americans is they will just talk to strangers.
One of the best things I love foreigners finding out about America when they actually get to America and have a first-hand experience about is how vast the country is.
It was never just about impressive skylines or endless highways. The greatest attraction was almost always the people. In Britain, walking past a stranger often involved avoiding eye contact entirely. Looking down at the pavement had become almost second nature. A casual greeting could occasionally earn puzzled expressions rather than friendly conversation. Nobody considered it rude. It was simply normal. America operated by a completely different social script.
Cannot wait to leave this liberal, communist country Europe behind to go back to America where there's liberty, freedom, and ranch. I love America, and I want to apologize.
You go to America, you don't realise how depressing our snack aisles are until you go there. Coming back to Britain after eating in America is like going from Netflix back to VHS. We grew up thinking paprika was adventurous.
A morning walk frequently included cheerful greetings from people you had never met before. A quick visit to buy coffee could easily become a short conversation about football, the weather, or recommendations for places worth visiting. Cashiers, neighbors, restaurant staff, and fellow supporters often treated complete strangers as though they had known them for years. For many British tourists, those interactions were initially surprising.
On anything in my life. You see that plane there? If it's going to America, I'm going to jump up, I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to come. I can't do this country anymore. I can't do the UK. It feels like we're in a...
Was genuinely the best decision I've ever made in my entire life. As a permanent resident of the country that I've dreamed of living in, and I'm so happy we worked so hard to get it, because I am having the best time of my life.
This is probably the most American thing I've ever seen.
After a few days, they became addictive. Travelers repeatedly described Americans as people who genuinely seemed happy to be alive. That observation appeared again and again across hundreds of videos filmed during the tournament. Even experienced tourists who had explored dozens of countries admitted there was something difficult to explain about the atmosphere. It was less about individual personalities and more about a collective sense of possibility that appeared almost everywhere they went.
I'm taking 2 suitcases with me, and then my mum will send over another bag, which will be my winter bag, which will have all like my hoodies and my jeans and stuff in. Okay.
But we expected like to hear a massive uproar from the neighbours, cheering, shouting. There is nothing. Like literally not a peep from anyone.
Some travelers compared America to the main character in an ambitious adventure film, constantly believing the next exciting chapter was waiting just around the corner. Britain, by comparison, occasionally felt like the supporting character who expected things to go wrong before they even began. It was an exaggerated comparison, of course, but exaggeration often reveals a deeper emotional truth. Visitors were not claiming every American lived a perfect life. They were describing the noticeably different energy they experienced during ordinary moments. That impression became even stronger after hearing from people who had spent decades exploring the world.
Figures middle-class Brits are fleeing the UK in droves, not for sun and sangria, but for financial survival. Since Labour's election win last summer, demand for so-called golden visas in countries like Greece and Portugal has absolutely skyrocketed. Applications from the UK for Greek...
Like, America isn't built to scale in their brain, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, with all the propaganda and things they see on the internet. And
several veteran travelers, each having visited more than 80 countries across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas, admitted that nowhere else consistently produced the same feeling. They praised countless destinations for history, architecture, natural beauty, or cuisine, but when the conversation shifted toward hospitality, America repeatedly climbed to the top of the list. One experienced traveler explained that before moving there, he had believed nearly every stereotype shown by European media.
Where would you want to live and why? And also, did you used to want to move to America, and maybe since the climate has changed of late?
I went to America for 2 weeks for the World Cup and I had the best 2 weeks of my entire life. How good America is and how good the Americans are. Anything bad that I have ever said about America, government aside, I take it all back. Honestly, the country's amazing.
He expected cold interactions, constant tension, and communities divided by endless conflict. What actually happened surprised him far more than anything he had anticipated. The longer he stayed, the more those assumptions quietly disappeared. America did not transform into a flawless paradise, because no country ever does. Instead, it revealed itself as something much more interesting, a place where everyday kindness routinely overshadowed the frightening headlines that had dominated television screens for years.
Who I hadn't seen in 10 years, invited me to watch the World Cup with her English friends. It was so much fun.
I don't even know where to begin with this one. Let's talk about my experience of the 4th of July as a Brit. Yesterday was the most American day I've ever experienced. So I woke up with a coffee, and within about 30 seconds, a stranger had swapped it.
That realization spread rapidly among British football fans after the World Cup. And once enough people started sharing nearly identical experiences, it became increasingly difficult to dismiss them as isolated stories. The growing wave of first-hand accounts forced many people back home to ask an uncomfortable...
Yo, so I recently moved from UK to America. Gonna start vlogging, get out of my comfort zone, you know.
If so many ordinary visitors kept returning with completely different impressions, perhaps the biggest surprise of the tournament had never taken place inside a football stadium at all. The most surprising legacy of the 2026 World Cup may not be remembered through goals or trophies, but through millions of changed perspectives.
There's another one who discovered CVS, and then another one who was like, look at all these options for Dr. Pepper. And one of the comments on the video was like, not to brag, but this is what we have instead of Universal.
Amazing. The people are even better. Like, that is the greatest hospitality that I have ever had going to a country ever. Shout out to Boston again. We took over that whole city and the Bostonians loved it.
I don't know if that was hospitality or an initiation ceremony. In Britain, a neighbour might borrow your lawnmower. In America, they look at you and think, that man needs a beer before breakfast. But what was special is everywhere we went all day, people just said, Happy 4th. And I had never heard that before in my life.
Countless British fans arrived expecting chaos and returned talking about kindness, opportunity, and a contagious sense of optimism they never expected to find. America was not perfect, but it was far more welcoming, vibrant, and inspiring than the image many had carried for years. Whether it was the people, the food, the innovation, or the unmistakable belief that tomorrow could be even better, one unforgettable trip transformed how many visitors viewed an entire nation, leaving them eager to return long after the final whistle.